Tampopo is a quintessential Japanese film with a global appeal. It's a funny, heartfelt celebration of all things food. Today we revisit this ramen western with a newfound appreciation and respect for every ingredient that fills our bowls. It may just be the greatest food film you've never seen.
先生、最初はスープからでしょうか、それとも麺からでしょうか。
最初はまずラーメンをよく見ます。
Welcome to Film to Table, where we explore the relationship between favorite films and delicious dishes. Join me in the kitchen and let's get cooking. So how do you eat ramen? And it goes beyond manners, but more so into philosophy. So here today to help me get you through this film is wonderful film expert Haroon from Fandor. What were your first thoughts going into this movie?
From the first shot, you start out in the movie theater, there's a banquet of food, and immediately you know that this film is a love letter to food, and it's really, really absurd.
What we've done here is we've taken some chicken wings, you could use chicken or duck wings, we've taken some pork, then you put them at the base of a big large stock pot, you add in leeks, Japanese green onions, we have kombu, a bulb of garlic just cut in half, big knob of ginger. Now you put these elements in there whole. Everything matters, the water doesn't come past the boil because you don't want your broth to go cloudy. You want to skim the fat. You're basically creating a life. I want you to place the pork in here.
Okay.
Oh, very chefy. You know how to put that in. The amount of times I see people do it and they just throw it in, the fat goes over it, you put it away from yourself. So the whole idea is just to render a little bit of fat, get a little bit of caramelization. We can add the soy, sake, rice wine. Then we have garlic. I've got the green onions. And then you can throw in that ginger. Very typical Asian flavors to work with anyway. Or we'll add a little bit of water as well.
Okay.
We sort of want to cover it about halfway to 2/3. So then we put our lid on it. Now we give this probably about an hour and a half. We're coming back to it sort of every 10, 15 minutes. So we have our pork, and we have our broth. Simmer with a bubble here and there. You don't want to see it boil. So we've allowed the pork to cook for an hour and a half. I'll let you have a go at cutting it. Remember in the movie, it's about 3 millimeters thick. You don't want it too thick. The knife becomes an extension of your arm. You are one with the knife and you just feel everything. Too much information?
A little bit.
All right, we're on to the noodles. Now, if you remember from the movie, the water has to be boiling. There's something that I'm still curious about. Why do they call it a ramen western?
The character, first thing we see, comes in on a bullhorn truck wearing a cowboy hat and a bandana. Who else did that? John Wayne. Totally did that in the Western films he was in. Even if you just look at the story, here you have a ragtag team of people coming together to help this vulnerable person who's being threatened. They get into a saloon fight in the middle of a ramen shop.
Okay, so it's almost like the sheriff is going around to round up a posse.
And that's basically the plot of something like The Magnificent Seven, which is a spiritual remake of The Seven Samurai by Akira Kurosawa, who is another Japanese filmmaker.
It takes it to a whole new level. So our water's boiling. I've got long green onions.
And looking at those noodles really reminds me of spaghetti westerns, which are a genre that came from the 70s when Sergio Leone was making the films with Clint Eastwood that you probably are familiar with, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
So he's Italian, hence the spaghetti. Okay, so the water needs to be boiling. Just move them around, we agitate them slightly. Bowls should be hot. You don't want to add your broth or your noodles. You don't want to cool it down, so you should make sure your bowls are hot if you need to run them under hot water. First, we're going to take a little bit of that liquid left from cooking the pork in the base of each bowl, and the broth goes into the base of the bowl. And you can see, because we've nurtured the broth, if you had a closer look on that, the broth is still really clear because we haven't boiled it. And there are these very minuscule gems of fat that are still sitting on the top. Fat still carries flavor. You don't want too much, but just enough. Okay, so our noodles need to work quick.
Wasn't it really awesome how fast she was able to pull off making the noodles finally?
She had this massive, big sieve strainer, massive pot, and the way she tossed them really quick, and she used the tongs, it's super dramatic and very cool. And in a busy restaurant, you have to be able to work that fast. Then what we do is we take our pork, and we take a couple of slices, our menma. All these elements create this harmonious Zen experience. Japanese green onions. So this is not only flavor, but texture. We add our fish cake, and if you remember in the movie, it was the fish cake that got thrown onto the rich guy that created the fight. Perfectly landed right on his nose. We also add a little bit of the sesame oil. So I'm just gonna take a little drizzle of the sesame oil straight over the top. And then we add some of the nori. So the nori has a very earthy appeal to it as well. It adds texture. And that's it. But you don't let it wait too long. And it is hot. when you actually have it in front of you, it is so beautiful. Look how clear it is. The master took his chopsticks and he just ran it over the top, sort of wet the noodles. You appreciate the love that's gone into this. So good. I feel like there's one part missing though.
What's that?
Remember the egg yolk scene? You up for it? Ready? I'll go first. We won't do mouths, we'll just do it in the shell. For new episodes, recipes, and more, visit lstudio.com.